Try to assist. What is up? This is Yahoo NFL Live. Pete McCarthy, Matt Savoca, looking at this Monday night game from the Yahoo DFS perspective. What's up, Mr. Savoca? Big football weekend behind us, and I will say I'm thankful there is a Monday game. I did not see a lot of things coming that came down this weekend, whether it be the Bills romping the New England Patriots or I don't know, an umpire deciding a Cowboys 49ers game. This is not necessarily the way that I saw, but we get a bonus game, it kind of feels like, with this Monday nighter.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thrilled to be here. Feels like a little bit of an epilogue because in past seasons, there was no Monday Night Football game after, I think, the penultimate week of the regular season. Now we're here in Wild Card Weekend, arguably one of the most exciting games on the slate here. And as you mentioned, it was kind of a wild way to get to the end point that we kind of saw here. If anyone was picking one upset in those Saturday and Sunday games, most people were kind of leaning on that 49ers team against Dallas. And then the rest of the favorites kind of took care of business in ways that we thought, refs notwithstanding in some of these games here. So really excited to dig into this one. I'm all for extra football, just like you, and two teams that know each other well, and a little bit of bad blood, you could say, a rubber match in the making.
Yeah, I like division rivalry games. I love this NFC West. It's just a great division, no matter who's involved in these games over the course of the season. I'm kind of interested. The Cardinals really faded as the season went along. The Rams, they're Jekyll and Hyde, right? It's like, all right, let me ticket in my Matthew Stafford pick six somewhere in this game, as I got that on the bingo card tonight. But yeah, we'll be breaking this one down for you, looking at some of the Yahoo pricing and how it stands out. Should you play Cooper Kupp? Should you not? It's usually not a question, but he's pretty dang expensive tonight on Yahoo's. We'll get into it. And of course, give us a like, subscribe, keep up with all of our shows, our DFS offers, our giveaways. And once you do subscribe, hit the notification button. That'll give you an alert every time our shows go live. Be sure to also check out our free premium tools and data at Awesemo, which are NBA player projections, big NBA day, and NHL player projections as well. Basic rundown on this game tonight. The Rams are a 3.5-point favorite on their home field. Relatively high over-under at 49.5. We don't have to worry about weather. It's not going to be 5 degrees. It's not going to be windy, no mud, none of that stuff. We're in the dome there in LA.
What about a lightning delay? Did we have that?
We can't put anything past
into existence.
I guess it'd be like how many Cardinal fans would show up. I'm not sure how much of a traveling fan base that is, but well, we know in LA, the road fans can fill it up, so it might be relatively split here tonight. I guess the injuries are kind of interesting. Before we go, player by player and look at the pool here, I mean, when someone's signing Eric Weddle out of retirement, 2 years of retirement to suit up in a playoff game, and it sounds like Weddle's not just going to play like 3 snaps. McVay said it could be 10 snaps. It could be 30. For Jalen Waddle tonight, and the Rams, they lost both of their starting safeties in a week, Taylor Rapp and Jordan Fuller. That's a big factor going into this game.
Yeah, Eric Weddle off the streets and possibly playing significant snaps in your playoff game is not a good sign. I know that the Arizona Cardinals are missing their number 1 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, but they still have weapons that can take advantage of this. The LA Rams are the #1 team in PFF's defensive team grades, but that's just combining the player grades of all the players who have been playing. So when you have a true vacancy like this, really no one with any experience, that's a problem in professional football. So we can give the rest of the team all the positive grades we want, but it just adds to the shootout probability here, in my opinion. Both of these games in the regular season went at 52 points or more in total points here. So I actually think this 49 and a half point total is relatively light. I'm choosing the over here, especially because of this key injury. I just think that even if Los Angeles is able to get ahead, it just adds to the probability of Arizona being able to come back.
Yeah, no, look, these teams should be able to score some points. We've seen Kyler Murray do it. We've seen Matthew Stafford do it. Some inconsistency over the last, 3 months from these two, but certainly capable of putting up a ton of points. I think the Arizona running back situation will be interesting tonight. James Conner has a questionable tag. Chase Edmonds in that mix. It always feels like they've had one and not the other for the last month and a half. It would be big for them to have both, and that'll be a huge thing to keep an eye on as we get closer to kickoff. But let's start to break down this Arizona passing game, what we're looking for here. And we'll begin with the quarterback, Kyler Murray, sitting there $32 on Yahoo. Sounds like a lot until you realize that Cooper Kupp is 42. So, $32 for Kyler Murray, a quarterback who can throw it, who can run it. He's averaged 270 passing yards per game, has rushed for 5 touchdowns this year. This is a guy, we've seen it. He's capable of putting up a lot of points in this Yahoo format.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've broken it down week by week here, where the quarterback, at least one, and usually both, ends up in the optimal lineup. It's just so difficult, especially when you don't have that salary multiplier for the quarterback. You're going to be playing them a lot, especially ones with rushing upside here. And Kyler Murray, number 6 in carries per game and number 4 in red zone carries per game here. And so even though he's got that high salary, just lower than Cooper Kupp, that's it. In our latest run of simulations, he's got over 25 fantasy points in 46% of our latest runs. So, I'm getting to him a ton at that superstar spot. I certainly am fine playing him at the flex. In a vacuum, you like Kyler Murray more. I am leaning towards skinny stacking him more than double stacking, but in a large field tournament, go ahead and do that as well. Just because of the rushing upside, I think the skinny stack makes more sense, but do whatever you like, especially when you got some low salary options like Zach Ertz or Christian Kirk that we'll talk about later.
What do you mean by skinny stack?
Just stacking the player with one receiving option instead of 2 receiving options, making it the fatter stack, if you will.
I think that generally makes sense to do on Yahoo because you only have 5 roster spots being part of it. I don't think you necessarily have to get to 2 receiving targets there. And you're right, with the Kyler Murray especially. I'm curious. I haven't run this yet. I'm trying to play with it now. Can you get Kupp, Murray, and Stafford in the same lineup in this game? Does it work out?
Oh boy. Yeah,
No.
I don't
think it fits.
It probably would be something.
So that's kind of big. So, right, if we're going to talk about Kyler Murray tonight, if you love Cooper Kupp or you love Matthew Stafford, you probably want to play those two together. So you got to go without Kyler Murray in that case. So you have to believe that maybe the Cardinals are running the ball a lot, maybe they're not moving the ball at all, or that just Kupp and Stafford are so dominant together that you don't need Kyler Murray in this game. I mean, that's right off the bat. That's probably the biggest decision that you're making. Are you stacking Kupp, Stafford, or are you going with Kyler Murray? That's quite the choice to have to make.
Man, I don't know and I'm probably going to just end up playing multiple lineups because I don't know if I really can decide one or the other. Truthfully, this is one of those situations where I might just go with the player who had the otherworldly season at his position in Cooper Kupp and not prioritize a quarterback. But I know that's actually going against the data. That's not in my, not usually my strategy here. So I am kind of realizing that is more narrative based, more bias based. But even in my
Cooper
latest
Kupp
run
has broken the data a few times this year, to be fair.
Exactly. At a certain point, you just got to go with what's actually happening on the field. And even when I build optimal lineups, boosting up Kyler Murray a little bit, I'm still getting more Cooper Kupp than I am Kyler Murray. I just think that the ceiling for Murray is exactly as high as Kupp. So, it does come down to kind of one or the other here. But, especially with a quarterback and rushing upside, where the other quarterback in Stafford, sure, he's got 3-4 touchdown upside, but he has no rushing upside to speak of. Kyler is definitely in a tier of his own outside of Cooper Kupp.
I suppose another question would be, would you play Kupp without Stafford? Even maybe Kupp up top?
I absolutely think that's viable, especially just in a one-game slate in general. You want to boost up the projection of a player's quarterback if you're going to be playing receiving options, but that doesn't mean you have to get to them. So Stafford is a great play, especially if you are playing Kupp, but he's not a necessary play either. If you even go Kupp and Kyler, you're still spending so much salary. Stafford's completely off the table, but that's something I definitely am going to have in some of my lineups tonight.
It's interesting the way that the salaries work out. I didn't realize until right here during the show you can't get all three in the lineup, so that'll be an interesting decision. All right, on some of the other sites, maybe you pay extra to have somebody in that captain spot. But with the superstar spot on, you don't pay extra for that. So you just can't have all these guys in the lineup, period. And you can't do the stars, duds, however you want to look at it, studs and duds. So it's interesting. And this is, of course, the end of the super wild card round. And that means it's your last opportunity to take advantage of our NFL Express weekly promotion. Now, through tonight, our NFL Express weekly pass will only be $1 when you use promo code SUPERWILD at checkout. That is super wild, one word, all caps, and it activates a $1 NFL Express weekly pass, which will give you access to our player and ownership rankings for NFL slates and everything we have to offer for showdown and single game contests, including our player projections, ownership projections, and our top plays tool. Again, that's super wild at checkout, or you can simply click the link in the description of this video to activate that promo code. Stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus today. And I believe if you activate that today, you would get a week, in which case you get 4 games next week, the divisional round of the playoffs as well. So be sure to check out Super Wild. Now, one area where there is some cost savings, if you love Kyler Murray tonight, you think he's going to throw the ball a little bit because there is no DeAndre Hopkins, it's a relatively cost-friendly receiving core for these Arizona Cardinals. Christian Kirk, 16. AJ Green, 15. Rondale Moore, who does have a questionable tag, is 14. Zach Ertz is 14. Antoine Wesley, who had a big game last week, is at 10. That's where you can save a little bit of money, but good luck picking out who is going to be this top receiver for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm taking shots all over the place here. So as you mentioned, I'm usually just playing one of these receivers here, especially if I'm prioritizing Kyler Murray at, say, the superstar spot. But my favorite right now is Zach Ertz, has led the team in target share since week 14, essentially since the time that DeAndre Hopkins was announced to be out for the rest of the season. He might return for the Cardinals if they make a deep playoff run, certainly not being activated tonight. So Ertz is my first choice here, especially since you get a little bit of a salary saving option compared to other players in this receiving core. Christian Kirk and AJ Green, they're kind of a toss-up for me. Christian Kirk is the one who's had more air yards and targets overall in that same span I was talking about here. But AJ Green is definitely intriguing to me. A 9-target game last week, 2 in the red zone. What's really enticing to me is that usually with players in their early 30s, especially receivers, we see their opportunities start to wane as their athleticism wanes. So seeing 9 targets last week in a game against Seattle where absolutely mattered for seeding purposes for the Cardinals, I'm intrigued by that. I'm not going to say that automatically makes it better than a player who's averaged 2 more targets per game suddenly, but I'm definitely getting to plenty of AJ Green here. And Antoine Wesley and Rondale Moore are sort of my mix-in players. I don't mind having them. If I am doing a double stack with the Arizona Cardinals, I certainly don't mind them. Wesley had an 8-target game in week, I believe, 15 earlier this season. So I do like the upside there at a lower salary, but we're talking about low probability options, maybe 16 to 20% chance of being in the optimal lineup for those two.
I thought it was interesting with Green. The game I had a chance to watch him a little bit was against Dallas, and he was able to burn Diggs on one play. Now, he didn't just straight up outrun him. Yeah, he has that craftiness, being in his 30s, kind of a little double move, and was able to get himself open downfield, but he still has the ability to to make a big play. Sometimes maybe it takes an over-aggressive corner. You don't necessarily have that with a veteran like Jalen Ramsey on the other side if Ramsey is going to be opposite him in this game. But it's good to see a little bit that A.J. Green could still get over the top of a defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Cowboys were in the middle of imploding, as we have now fully confirmed in that game against Arizona. But I will say we're going to have to go back with that Trayvon Diggs season because he had a ton of turnovers. He had a lot of flashy plays, but he also got burned a lot by Green and others here. Green obviously is a player that I'm going to be getting to. But one thing I should mention is since that week 15 mark, when DeAndre Hopkins left the field essentially for good, this trio of receivers have not gotten into the end zone. And I know touchdowns are a thing that have a lot of variance in football, but still just one total touchdown between A.J. Green, Christian Kirk, and Zach Ertz. That's really concerning. And I'm not sure I want to spend so much salary double stacking those players if that's the case.
What about Rondale Moore? He has a lot of ability, a lot of big play ability, but he hasn't played in recent weeks. He's questionable tonight. How does it affect things if he does play, if he doesn't play? Antoine Wesley, a big game in that finale with a couple of touchdowns. How do we sort out what happens, what the variable is, the variable being whether or not Rondale Moore plays in this game?
All right, so let's say he does play.
Mm-hmm.
The maximum amount of snaps in terms of percentage I think he plays is probably 45%, and I think that's being very generous to him. I think it's probably closer to 30%. And I do think the snaps that it probably takes away from first and foremost is Antoine Wesley. So if you're using Fantasy Cruncher, one rule I might consider is only one of Antoine Wesley or Rondale Moore. But Rondale Moore is one of those players that, if healthy, you absolutely design 2 to 4 plays in this game on offense specifically for him to get open in space. An extremely high catch rate because he gets targeted close to the line of scrimmage. And in total yards after the catch, despite missing all those games this season, his 276 yards after catch was actually 31st in the NFL. Not an overly impressive rookie year, but doing the thing that he was drafted to do, which was make people miss and just try to make some big plays in the open field. He just doesn't get the ball often enough, even when on the field, to be a high probability play.
Yeah. Well, at $14, you have that boom possibility with Rondale Moore. So that's the plus, but you might not want to have 90% ownership or anything like that on Rondale Moore in this game. So we'll see how it works out today between him and Wesley. We punted with Yahoo NFL Fantasy this year. And if you're not playing on Yahoo, be sure to check it out. And you can get yourself a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Now, you got to be new to Yahoo. Sign up for an account via the link below, deposit and play. And then Yahoo will send us your name after you pay in your first paid contest, and we'll be able to reach out via email with your coupons. You get yourself a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking the link in the video description below, which can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including the NFL $150,000 Monday Night Baller and the NBA $50,000 Baller. So make sure to use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning big, and those tools such an advantage. As we head now to the Rams passing game here, Matthew Stafford, $26. We talked about him a little bit. Doesn't have the upside of a Kyler Murray. Certainly capable of throwing 300 plus yards. Certainly capable of throwing a pick six as well, as we've seen over the course of this season.
Yeah, number 6 in the NFL in terms of most passes graded as interceptable, and even worse in passes graded as danger plays by playerprofiler.com. So in a sense, it's just a matter of time that some of those are going to be interceptions and some of those are going to be pick sixes. I don't have to tell any fantasy veterans here that pick sixes and interceptions are high variance, but it's absolutely concerning when you've had 2 interceptions or more in 3 straight games and 4 straight games where Matthew Stafford has thrown at least 1 pick. He's an aggressive player. What can you say? He's number 4 in total air yards, number 6 in air yards per attempt. That's the kind of offense they want to play in Los Angeles. But overall, the advanced metrics still like Matthew Stafford's season a lot and think he was a Pro Bowl snub. 3rd in adjusted yards per attempt this season, 4th in total QBR, 3rd in total expected points added. So yeah, he doesn't have the rushing upside here, but he certainly has a ceiling score that rivals Kyler Murray or Cooper Kupp. And he has a salary that's really different than both of them. $6 less than Kyler Murray at 26 and way, way less than Cooper Kupp, who's 42. So, I mean, I think Stafford makes a lot of sense from a value perspective. But just in terms of optimal lineup percentage in the last run I did with our projections, Stafford still comes in behind Kupp and Kyler. So it's not like we're prioritizing the value over the ceiling of those two players.
What do we do with Kupp? I mean, what does $42 do to a player like Cooper Kupp, and how often you can get to him?
So I thought for sure that it was too aggressive. Just looking at the slate first thing this morning and saying, what do I think my lineups are going to look like? I thought Cooper Kupp was going to be someone that I was going to be kind of fading. Well, it turns out I'm getting to him in 60% of my lineups. So maybe on this one game slate, people are going to be taking the safety and security of Cooper Kupp, but I think I might be using the field here as my guide and going just slightly over. There's just so many ways this guy succeeds here. And in terms of defensive prowess, I'm not really scared of Arizona. They're 11th of 14 teams that made the playoffs this season in PFF team defensive grades, and the 5th worst team in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. They lean towards being a pass funnel, meaning it's easier to pass on them than rush. I feel like the floor here is 7 or 8 targets for Kupp. And, you know, we're seeing in our latest sims that like 6.5% of the time he's scoring less than 10 fantasy points. It's just a ridiculous median projection too. He's scoring double digits here is basically what the sims say.
And I got a mea culpa to make here. I realized I had a stack from yesterday still in the mix. You can actually play Stafford, Murray, and Kupp in the same lineup tonight, but you don't have endless possibilities with it. I think you have you have $30 left over if you play Stafford, Murray, and Kupp for 2 spots. So you can do it. It is difficult to do, but you can get to that, which is a big mea culpa. My bad on that. This is why you should do the prep before the show and not during the show, and why we learn along the way sometimes. But yes, Matthew Stafford with that price tag certainly gets him very much in the mix here. Cooper Kupp, different story, but that's who they throw to. That's who they're going to all day, every day. Odell Beckham Jr. certainly in the mix. Kind of a high price tag for him at $22, considering that he is not Cooper Kupp. He's not guaranteed to get 10 targets per game, as we see from Kupp over the course of the season. Van Jefferson is a Q tag in this game. I am always interested in Tyler Higbee on the Rams. I think especially on Yahoo, those touchdowns are very valuable for the receivers, and you can look for it from the tight ends. Higbee has found the end zone 5 times over the course of the season. So I think he is kind of interesting. The cheaper receiving options for the Rams, there's not much down there. You're going to have to pay up to mix Stafford with somebody.
Yeah. And just to conclude our conversation on Cooper Kupp, one more sentence here is that I'm kind of thinking about this slate as a 3 quarterback slate, because if you look at in terms of median projection, ceiling projection, Cooper Kupp is basically like a quarterback here. So that actually adds to the strategy and doesn't subtract to it, in my opinion. So then we're going to the auxiliary weapons. Tyler Higbee may have scored 5 touchdowns this season. Odell Beckham has scored 5 touchdowns since joining the Rams. And so I do feel like that is not a fluke. That is something they are absolutely meaning to do to boost up Odell Beckham's confidence for games like this, where it's very possible that Arizona's defense might just do everything in their power to stop Cooper Kupp from getting the ball, and then just seeing which of these other auxiliary weapons beat them. You've got Van Jefferson with a questionable tag coming in. Maybe, he's a deep threat. If he doesn't have that deep playability, then you actually need Odell Beckham to make a few people miss, to burn a couple players here and there, or Tyler Higbee to get open over the middle. And their salaries are certainly fine here. I'm talking about getting to them maybe 5% of the time in the superstar spot, but about 20% of my lineups have either Van Jefferson or Odell Beckham here. One thing that's really interesting to note, this quartet of Kupp, Jefferson, Beckham, and Higbee accounted for 93% of the team's air yards this season. So in terms of like actual balls thrown through the air, that's the whole offense here.
Deshaun Jackson had the other 4%.
Right.
Maybe Skarneck's in there a little bit, but yeah, no, that's wild. They've been so dependent on just a few. How about, something like this? I usually make a rule not to play 2 tight ends on the same team, but they're talking about in chat with Zach Ertz, with Tyler Higbee. Would you play 2 tight ends in the same lineup?
Oh, well, Higbee and Ertz, absolutely. You can play they're just separate receiving options.
Yeah.
That's why we kind of talk about wide receivers and tight ends together on this show, because there's really no difference.
Yeah, they're it's a loose positions when you're talking about these showdowns, right? You don't have to force in a tight end. You don't have to stay away from a tight end, any of those kinds of things. You get 3 tight ends in there if you want to. Not recommended. Odds Shopper, of course. I mean, it can help you out even with Yahoo DFS in general. You get an idea of what the player props are looking at, where the best odds are. Certainly something, if you are playing the player props, you want to be familiar with. So be sure to check out oddshopper.com. There's a couple things for you. It allows our projections at Awesemo to mix with the odds to give you the best percentage, best return on investment. It also shops the various lines for you at various different books and tells you where you can get the best line, where you might be able to save a couple of yards here, a couple of yards there. As we know, it can make a big difference at the end of the day. So be sure to check that out if you're not already at oddshopper.com. Running backs, Arizona, it's kind of interesting. James Conner is questionable. He's the touchdown scorer. When he doesn't go, Chase Edmonds sees all of the action. Edmonds is more, all right, if they're behind, if they're both playing at least, if they're behind, he's going to catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. They definitely have distinct roles on this Arizona team.
Yeah, and the only real evidence we have of when they were on the field together was that Week 15 game where they were playing Detroit, a totally weird game script, one of the biggest upsets of the NFL season as we look back on it. And so in that game, James Conner actually out-targeted Chase Edmonds, and Chase Edmonds out-touched James Conner in the red zone. That's anomalous in my opinion. In general, we're going to see those roles flipped. I think I'm actually going to be taking more chances on Chase Edmonds here, who could obviously be a great play at his salary if James Conner isn't available here. But I will take chances on both. You said predefined roles, but as I just mentioned, if the game script goes haywire, we've already seen the Cardinals start to abandon ship with that. In that case, I'm probably just going to take shots on the lower salary player and be over the field that way.
Rams running game. Sony Michel has seen a lot of action in recent weeks, $19. We expect he'll see the majority of the opportunities here. But Cam Akers is at least interesting. I mean, if he was $10, I'd probably throw more darts here. He is 16, but this is the guy who was expected to be the starting running back, worked his butt off to get himself back at the end of the season, had 3 carries last week. Is it possible that Cam Akers plays a role like Giovanni Bernard? To some degree, you forget about him. And then he comes out, had a pretty big day for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday.
I'm walking down narrative lane here. You got to be different to try to win money in large field tournaments. And I think that there's a possibility that they're ready to unleash Cam Akers the way that they plan to do it to begin this season, and the way that they used him in the playoffs last season as well. I know this is a very different offense with Stafford at the helm instead of Goff, but I think Cam Akers is their most explosive runner, and it's possible he's actually their healthiest runner, having not gotten the nicks, bruises, and regular hits that the NFL season brings on a running back here. Really intrigued to see him run 7 routes and earn 3 targets on those 7 routes. That's a percentage that obviously can't last with a larger snap share, but he caught all 3 targets there, and as you said, got the 5 carries, 2 in the red zone as well. So Cam Akers is a player I'm going to be taking a stand on. I'm going to be well over the field. I know Sony Michel is that player. If you look at projections, is going to look fine, but that's the player I'm going to be under the field on. I just think Cam Akers might just be the best player in that backfield.
That's interesting. And if there's any position where a guy could come off the street, make an impact, like we don't expect it to be Eric Weddle at safety, but at running back, you can walk in on a new team or after an injury, and if you are feeling good, feeling fresh, you can pick up that offense and roll with it right away. You don't need to have that chemistry with the quarterback. We're not talking about all those things. You need to take the ball and run with it. Running back, I mean, it's the same thing with rookies coming into the league, right? The easiest position to make an impact as a rookie is running back.
Well, yeah, and this is not just some guy off the street either.
Yeah,
this is a player who was incredible in college, and in his small, albeit pretty small sample in the NFL, has been nothing but great. So I'm excited to see him tonight.
And he's been with the Rams these years, so he knows what he's getting into, the offense, all those different things. Defense, Cardinals are 15, Rams are 13. You said earlier, I think you like to see some points tonight. You expect to see some points tonight when the over-under is relatively high. these defenses are opportunistic. We have seen them put up some touchdowns over the course of the season. I mentioned Matthew Stafford has a propensity for throwing those pick sixes, whether we look at that as just something that happened or something that could continue to happen here. What do you make of the defenses in this game?
Taking sporadic shots on them. I like players. I like skill players in that $13 to $15 range here. So I do have them in my superstar pool, but we're talking under 5% for both of them.
I like your stand, Cam Akers tonight. Get on Cam, see what he could do. I'm interested in running backs usually, especially running backs on the favorite team. Because I like to play both quarterbacks. If you can get a $16 Cam Akers up top, you could play Murray, you could play Stafford, you could certainly get Kupp in there, I think, as well. And then you'd have to save on that fifth spot. You might be able to even squeeze in like a Higbee or an Ertz in that spot. Or Ertz is 14.
Oh, yeah. There's my lineup right there.
I don't know exactly how the math works out. I'm not going to play this game again and doom myself for a second time on the show. But yeah, I mean, there are some interesting lineups that you can make with that if you love Akers to be the guy. And we've certainly seen that just over the last few days, right? In the playoffs. It's not the running back that you necessarily think. Jerick McKinnon last night with the Kansas City Chiefs put up a big day. And he had given hints of that in week 17. And yet what I saw in Yahoo, he was only 2% owned. So if you had McKinnon, you were cashing in most likely.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so, yeah, playing those backup running backs, especially ones with as much talent when healthy as Cam Akers on home favorites. It sounds like he's got a lot going for him, at least theoretically.
And they're backups, right? They're backups till they're not, right? We don't know. The Rams could line up first start of the game. Cam Akers could be in the backfield. You might luck into a spot where he is actually starting for you. It's not like we get the NBA lineups, 10 minutes before tip, and we have an idea of what's going on there. NFL, a little more secretive, and we'll see what the Rams decide to do. So that could be one thing that you see here. The Cardinals running game, obviously very interesting as far as whether Connor is going to play. There are some injuries to watch for in this game. The Cardinals passing attack might have some advantages with the safety situation of the Rams we covered a little bit. So a lot of different things to look at and a lot that we're going to learn over the course of the day when the inactives do come out. So you want to stay tuned here to Awesemo. We will have much more coverage of this game. NFL Showdown Live coming up at 7:05 Eastern. And of course, it's a monster NBA game on this Martin Luther King Day. So we'll have NBA Deeper Dive, the pre-show coming at 4:30 Eastern, more NBA content along the day as well. So a lot to get into before this big super wild card weekend comes to an end. I don't like the name super wild card weekend, but I do like now that it's 3 days of Monday Night Football. This is a win.
I feel like super and wild is the double adjective curse there. So choose one. Super wild is, I guess, that's its own adjective that, according to Awesemo, that's our current promo. So check that out today too.
Well, I do. Yeah, it's great for the promo. I don't know. I love it for the whole weekend. So yeah, remember, super wild, super wild, super wild. Use that for the promo so you can check out a week of Awesemo, and you got that in the description below. Of course, like, subscribe. Somebody in the chat is asking me, how did the Patriots do? I couldn't watch. Yeah, I like the Patriots on Saturday. That one didn't go. I haven't been very good at picking these games this weekend. It was a pretty unpredictable weekend for me, at the very least.
Hey, you got to make a stand, as we said, and sometimes that means being strong and wrong.
Strong and wrong. Oh, strong and wrong on Saturday night. That's for sure. But you know what? The Patriots lost. They got but I was very happy watching the game. I'm a Jets guy, so I'll 20 years from now, when Josh Allen has kicked our cans for 20 years, then I'll root against the Bills. But until then, still have that animosity towards the Patriots. Anyway, again, like, subscribe. This has been Yahoo NFL Live. Matt Savoca killing it as always. Best of luck tonight playing on Yahoo. I'm Pete McCarthy. Take care, guys.